In 2025, we are stepping it up. No more amateur-looking case studies, vague goals, and annoying animations. We're fixing up our portfolios so they are functional and show how great and well-rounded designers we are. Out with the old, in with the new. Let's go. The very first change that we need to make is from hiding failures to embracing transparency, or from perfect to honest. I've noticed that so many designers want their case studies to come across as those unicorns with perfect process and perfectly executed deliverables. Boring and not realistic. We need to take a step back and look at our portfolios through the recruiter's eyes. What they would be looking for in our portfolios? Well, they're looking for evidence that you can execute high-quality design projects for their company repetitively. Got the word right. So, what would be the evidence in our portfolio that would indicate that to them? First of all, it would be a correctly executed design process. And pay attention, it doesn't mean it is a perfectly executed design process. It just means that you went through phases like research and you iterated on your designs and you delivered multiple iterations to your team and you collaborated with people and that you actually solved a problem that you faced at the very beginning and you can support this with data. Then they look for obstacles, your ability to overcome problems and work with technical limitations or limited resources, because this is the case in so many companies. Basically, in every project, there will be some kind of limitation when it comes to the technical side, or maybe you don't have enough time, you don't have enough people. So if you can show it in your portfolio that you managed to solve problems, even though there were those limitations, you're in. Okay, Alicia, it sounds great, but how to actually add it to my portfolio? I got you. We'll go through some ways right now. You can quite literally list technical limitations or limited resources that you faced at the very beginning of the project and then show how you overcame it. So for example, we didn't have access to multiple users to get usability testing done. And then you can explain that because of that and limited time to find those users, you decided to do hallway testing with your coworkers just to have some results of people who use the product. Show long-term vision for the feature that you're designing and then split delivery in iterations, because for sure you did V1 or even V0, V2, V3, etc. and there is a future vision. Show this part of the process. There is no need to hide it. There is no need to pretend that everything was delivered or just V1 was delivered. Highlight when you added or skipped some steps in a design process and explain why it was needed in this case. So for example, in some projects, it just makes sense to shorten or entirely skip low fidelity exploration if the understanding of the interface heavily depends on colors and some things like iconography, etc. So maybe your project was like this and you just did it. So explain it in your portfolio. Don't pretend that you did low fidelity exploration even if you didn't. Embrace failures and all the iterations you went through. So for example, if the very first iteration of usability testing was just terrible and the outcomes were that bad that you had to come back to the drawing board, show it in your portfolio. Show what happened, what was your theory about what went wrong in the design process, and most importantly, how you overcame it and what was the next iteration of design that you've tested. And this is the juicy stuff that we're looking for in the case studies. And the most important thing here is to explain why you made certain decisions, what you've learned from it, and there are bonus points if you improved some processes or you made some changes in your personal process to avoid those mistakes in the future. If you would like more technical advice on how to construct your case studies, how to write texts for your portfolio, annotate your designs, in general present your work better and tell the story, you can check out my free 5-day portfolio masterclass. I know I talk about this course almost every time we have a video, but it's really important and it's free, so there is a link in the description. Another thing that we are not doing in 2025 is overwhelm people with flashy portfolios. I've never been a fan of those scrolling animations and custom cursors and things falling into place as you scroll through the page, but recently, since browsers I think became better and maybe it's easier to build those, there is a flood of portfolios like this. Sometimes I think like the weirder the better. I don't know what's going on. We need to absolutely stop this and start treating our case studies more like project documentation. Of course, they need to be clean and well designed, but we are aiming more for good layouts and responsive design and short text, just clean, zen, and very calming experience. What we're doing is we're doubling down on content first. So images and texts that are in the case study are in the center of attention. There is no need to overwhelm people and distract them with some flashy animations and things that are going on in addition to the content of the case study. And this is not only about my personal preference or looking professional or not being distracting, it is also about that those effects that you may add to the portfolio, there's a high possibility that they will not work on every browser or every screen size. I can't tell you how many times I got the portfolio to review and I couldn't even click on a thumbnail of a project, so I couldn't get into a project because it was covered with some elements or the scrolling or animation didn't work properly. So I wanted to review a portfolio, but I really couldn't, which is the worst situation that you can put yourself in as a designer or as a candidate, basically. Our motto for 2025 is maximizing understanding and easy consumption of our portfolio. And the good news is that with this mindset, you can even build your portfolio in Notion, which I also have a video for with a free template that I will link here above. The next point is from UX design portfolio to product design portfolio. In 2025, we are going way beyond design in our portfolios. We need to show the product context, goals, metrics, and business objectives. Actually, it will make your portfolio look way more senior, and this is the goal here. And I was thinking about naming this section from junior to senior as well. In practice, here are the pieces of information that you can add to your portfolio. First of all, goals, but they need to be well formulated. The goal is not to design an app, and I see this goal added to the portfolios in so many cases. The goal is something like increase monthly active users, or maybe give people ability to convert their data from one format to another. This is basically something that your PM adds in their document that they come to you with at the very beginning of the project. Another section that I like to add is why we should work on it and why now. And this is an opportunity to show that this project is aligned with a high-level product strategy. And there are some bonus points if you can align your goals, so the goals for the project, with high-level company goals. So no matter if your company uses OKRs or any other goal-setting system, try to show that your project contributes to achieving those goals. Another thing to show are metrics. So what metrics you're trying to improve. This is something that you can put at the very beginning of the project, probably together with goals. And then at the end of the project, you can show what metrics this project after implementation managed to improve. And this is the best case scenario when you have access to all the data. If you don't have access to those metrics and the effects of the project, or if you have an example project in your portfolio based on imaginary brief, you don't have to skip this section. You can actually show what metrics you would track for the project or how you would measure the success of your designs. And this is something that points out that you have this metric focus and impact focus in your case study. Doesn't really matter if those are real metrics or just, the I would measure those things type of metrics. Of course, better if you have real data, but the point is to show that you approach projects with this kind of attitude. The fourth rule is about switching our case study structure from just a walkthrough activities of the design process to more mature storytelling. And what I mean by this is that you probably structured your case studies around the design process. So you did research, then you did low fidelity exploration, high fidelity, then usability testing, and it is based on the design process and it is in chronological order. And it may work for many projects, but for some projects, this structure is too limiting. For example, in my portfolio, I have a project where we went from a prototype through alpha, beta to GA, and it just wouldn't work. It was too rigid for this project. Or sometimes you want to show that you were setting up a design system or some kind of process in your design team. That also wouldn't work for this kind of project. Instead, I like to use one of those two techniques. So the first one is splitting your case studies into problem space and solution space. In problem space, you list all the data, all the information that you have, all the research that you did, the goals, the personas, whatever it is. And then in solution space, you move through the designs, so low fidelity, high fidelity designs, testing, etc. In many projects, it would be very much going through the first and the second diamond of the process, so there wouldn't be that much of a difference. But for more convoluted ones, the projects with less structure and more back and forth, this is a really lifesaver. The second technique is problem-solution pairing. I list all the issues that I'm solving in the project and then tell the story of each of them separately. I usually start with this technique after introducing the project in general, so after the very first section in the portfolio case study where you have the goals and all the data that you introduce with. And it is great for case studies, for projects that group improvements of different nature without really a big theme. So regular chronological structure is great for projects that are more straightforward, like let's introduce a calendar view, for example. This structure, the problem-solution structure, is better for more convoluted projects that have multiple things going on. So for example, we need to fix our onboarding, and there is a high probability that you will be fixing probably like 1 to 4 issues or 6 or 7 issues in this case study in the project. So if you were to go chronologically, so show research for each of them, show low fidelity exploration for each of them, you would be going back and forth. So you would show research, issues 1 to 4. Low fidelity, issues 1 to 4, and you would ask people to context switch for every section. It is way better to just go with introduction, we're fixing the onboarding, and then issue number 1, show the whole process. Issue number 2, show the whole process, and maybe join in some cases where you were, for example, testing everything together. And of course, you don't need to choose just one approach for every case study in your portfolio. You can mix and match whatever fits best to your case studies and to the story that you want to tell. It is your portfolio, you decide, this is your responsibility to choose the best storytelling technique. And the last rule is from scrappy to professional. In 2025, we're saying no to scrappy-looking, messy portfolios. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to be professional. And how you present information really, really matters. Sorry, there are some crunching sounds. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's my dog in the other room. He's just enjoying his treat. So just ignore it for the rest of the video. Sorry for that. And there are a couple of things to correct. First of all, no more hand-drawn sketches on paper, badly lit explorations in low fidelity, or those walls of sticky notes that you present sometimes for low fidelity explorations. We are moving towards presenting our low fidelity explorations more neatly. I would say digital sketches is the way to go here. No more walls of mockups of the same thing with all the edge cases and all the states. A design case study is not a design handoff doc. You need to differentiate between the two. You need to be a curator, a storyteller, and just choose mockups that support your story. You need to show just enough to give people information about what you did and not overwhelm them. Quality over quantity when it comes to the number of projects. A portfolio filled with dozens of projects, no matter if they are long or short case studies, is just not it. You need to go deeper. It is UX design, so case studies need to be really engaging. And also, as I always say, portfolio is a selection of your best work, not all of your work. I should put it on a t-shirt. No more research scenarios and your rainbow sheets and your notes from usability testing directly in the case study. If you really, really want to put them there, just add a link to external Google Drive or something like that. It is important because they make the case study look really, really long and they make it look very junior at the same time. So we definitely can do better. Instead, just summarize research in points. For usability testing, for example, list goals and hypotheses, the task flow, and then findings and improvements. You can also show the before and after screen. So you have the finding, the before, and the after screen, so the improvement that you made. If you enjoyed this video, here is another one that you might like, Junior to Senior UX Design Portfolio. Don't forget to check the portfolio resources in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you over in the next one. Bye-bye.